today I'm going to talk about how you can improve your rankings, how you can increase the visibility of your content by using syndication. So basically, I'm going to talk about what syndicated content means, what kind of content can be syndicated, and then I'm going to discuss the differences between duplication and syndication, and provide you a methodology. What's the best way of ensuring your syndicated content ranks well? But before I start, let me give you a little bit more information about myself. So my name is Murat, and I'm living in Turkey. I'm from Turkey, but I was living outside of Turkey in a few different countries for the last 12 years. Started in Ireland, then moved to Germany, then moved to Poland, stayed in New York City for a little bit, then went back to homeland. And what I do is I'm a growth advisor. So I provide strategic counseling on SEO and organic growth to my clients. And one of my valuable clients is Help Day. So we've been working for a bit more than 6 months together. And one of our core subjects is to be able to create a platform that generates the highest quality content that is going to be syndicated and going to be successful. So basically, I'm not only providing the consulting to Help Day, but also its clients and its partners as well. So yeah, before I was working as a consultant, I was working in companies like Brainy, Global Savings Group, and Google. So I was working in the core search team in Google for more than 5 years, and then it got my interest. So yeah, I kind of like discovered that there's a lack of the knowledge about how Google works and how it can be helpful for business. So I started working in startups and created their growth teams, overseeing them for 3 and then 2 years. But in the meantime, I was always like doing some consulting as like a side gig. But I'm very proud that it became my whole thing. And today I'll be talking about syndicated content. So let's start with what the definition of syndication. But just before, I also like to say, if you have any questions at any time, feel free to shoot it over the chat. I'll be reading it and replying it right away. So like you can also, I don't know how it works here, but you can unmute yourself and ask a question as well. Feel free. So I just want to make sure that everything is clear. And if something needs clarification, I'll be more than happy to provide this. So I don't want to talk on any topic today in a way that is confusing. I'm here to simplify it. And so in order to simplify this topic, let's start with the definition of syndication. And I really like visuals when I'm telling a story, because I think they are telling the story better than I do with my words. And the definition is in these 2 images here. So the first one is an original content, which means the Health Day has created content with the headline of here's how COVID-19 can affect your mouth on 8th of September 2021. And then it has been distributed. So what happened is it is reposted by WebMD on the same day by indicating that it is syndicated from Health Day. So it's a third-party site syndicating a content that is originally produced by another site. That's the definition of syndication. And what kind of content can be syndicated? As you have seen in the previous example, articles and content in text form can be syndicated. Few examples are like interviews, blog posts, research, and perhaps a study that is providing like some statistics about its significant topic. These can be syndicated, and majority of the content syndication in health industry, in healthcare industry, and also overall in news industry is around these topics. But in the last few years, as the rich media has become more prominent in our reading experience, so the readers are seeking for content that has more media than text in it. That's why content that also has information like infographics, so image heavy, or videos or podcasts, they are also being syndicated. So overall, you can syndicate content that is text-based or beyond text-based, so which is like, it could be sound, it could be video, it could be image, or a combination of them. I guess so far it's clear what we're talking about. So today's topic, syndication. But why would you syndicate a content? What will be the main reasons and rationale behind it, or the motivation behind syndicated content? So when you adapt into syndication, when you start syndicating a high quality sources content, you unlock a new audience with this content. And how you unlock this new audience is basically obtaining more readership, obtaining more visitors via marketing channels. And one of the key channels is organic search. Majority of the people that are searching for information are actually searching it through search engines. So I think I'd say it's too many search, but that's actually what's happening. But this same syndicated content can also help you acquire the new audiences over social channels, or even more direct channels. So because you're basically expanding your knowledge base. What happens is you are generating valuable content that is relevant to your readers that you were not generating before, and that is providing you, that is empowering you to gain this via this new content more readers, or provide a better reading experience to your existing audience. And you're doing this without overseeing all the editorial and publishing processes behind creating high quality content. So you don't have to research, you don't have to find a topic first, then do a research about it, then create unique content about it, have a value proposition, make sure that you are adding value with this content. So it's not some copycat, or it's not a clickbait content. And then you get a fact check. You perhaps went through an MD and get it medically reviewed as well. So I didn't want to put a flow chart here, but it's a very heavy and complex process. And just because it's heavy and complex doesn't mean that you should not have content. Content is going to be the key asset that you are going to own, which is going to help you unlock organic traffic. Without content, unlocking organic traffic is going to be near to zero possibility. And this is one way to get the content out there. So basically, you are expanding your knowledge base without creating this complex processes. So without really needing the effort of making sure that you are creating high quality content, and that is going to help you attract more users. That's going to help you increase your page views. You're going to obtain from organic search channels. So when it comes to organic search, we're talking about Google here mostly. There are many other valuable search engines, but global market giant is Google. So let's focus on that one. And so how you can attract more traffic from, or like via Google sources, is going to be determined by Google's set of rules. So Google is trying to provide high quality experience, high quality search experience to its users. And one way they are making sure they're providing high quality experience to, like, search experience to the users, is to make sure that the users are not seeing duplicated pages in search. So duplication is something that Google tries to eliminate before they serve their users pages in the search engine result page, the URLs basically. And so how they do this, how they cope with duplicated content, is because they don't want to overcrowd one search engine result page with repetitive content, because that's not going to add much of a value to a user. So that doesn't mean duplication is spam. That doesn't mean Google is enforcing specific rules to apply manual penalties for duplication, or there is a duplication algorithmic adjustment or something. So no Google core update is about duplication. No manual penalties, it is called manual penalties, but it's like manual actions are enforced to deal with duplication. Duplication is a sense of, like, it's actually at the end of the normal output of how web works. It is extremely normal to have duplication. It's neither low quality or spam practice, basically, that is defined by Google. And above more duplication, why I'm talking about duplication is because there is this myth that says syndication is basically duplication. It's not. So the definition of duplication is basically what Google is trying to eliminate from their search engine result pages, what they don't want to serve to their users, is content that is auto-generated with no added value at all. That is basically, yes, like if you have, for example, pages, let's say your own page, you're, I don't know, let's say you are selling a Nike Air Max, and then you have 50,000 Nike Air Max pages, but the only difference is the color is changing or the size is changing. And let's say there are 50 different sizes for 2 gender, and then 20 different colors. So permutation of them, thousands of pages. They are basically the same, but few parameters are changing. That is duplicate content. That's not helpful. So that's something Google is trying to eliminate. But having a syndicated page, having a page that is written by a resource and then being republished, reposted by others, is not value adding. This is like, for example, getting a reshare in Twitter. This basically tells that there's a high quality content that is being that has been approved, that has been created, and then being reshared by also valuable members of the news publishing society or websites that needs content. So they are reaching their audiences with that content. Yeah, so it's legitimate. Syndication is legitimate, and Google has absolute no policies against syndication. What Google says is, basically, I understand that there is a thin line between duplication and syndication, because you are reposting the same thing. So you're creating the same thing, but it's not the same page. Google can understand, Google can differentiate what is a syndicated content, what is a duplicated page, or duplicated content. And that's why what Google says in their official guidelines and help central articles is syndicate carefully. Because if you syndicate without adding any value at all, you are duplicating. So I'm not trying to play with words. Maybe I use too many terms here. So I want to take a step back and go through what does it mean when I say what Google says. So what Google says is Google has a webmaster guideline, and that is basically a list of set of guidelines, a set of items that Google says, I am going to enforce them to make sure that my indexes are free of spam. So I'm not showing spammy search results. And Google uses these guidelines to better understand. To better understand how it is. To better understand how to evaluate a page's quality. So when you read these guidelines, you're actually going through signals. So let's call a page elements change as a signal. An example is a title of a page is a good signal, because a title of a page is just like, for example, how a shop has a sign on it that says, I don't know, McDonald's selling burgers, come on in. So this is how it works. This is one signal, and there are countless signals. Yeah? And in ranking algorithm, the permutation of these signals goes to unbelievable numbers. But in general, officially Google says there are 200 signals, but then they sometimes use 600. So it's like, because this is not how it works. The signals are also talking to each other. Title is a signal by itself. Title together with the page's content along with the structured data is another signal by itself, so on and so on. It's almost countless. And what Google does is, by using these signals, they try to identify whether this content is helpful to users or this content is just reposted. Just reposted means if there is a content that is low quality and it is being reposted by many people, that means they don't even check. It is low quality. Why are you even reposting it? Yeah. So that's why when you're syndicating, or when you decide to syndicate, the first and probably the most important and probably the only thing that you need to care about is that the content that you are going to get, that you're going to decide to repost, should be high quality content. So when you read it, you need to learn something out of it, or it needs to be credible, it needs to be transparent, it needs to be trustworthy, and it needs to be written by experts. And you have control over it. So good, that's what Google wants from you. And this is the main thing. Then the rest is technical details. And I'm going to talk about these technical details because these are the signals that you have absolute control on them. And with these signals, you can tell Google when you are syndicating, you're not copy pasting, but you have a process. So you're also gatekeeping the quality of the syndicated content. I like to take a pause here because I've seen a few questions and I'll try to address them. So the first question is from Uta, asking, why would Google show the syndicated content rather than the original in the search results, especially if the source is referenced like in your intro example? Amazing question. I think I'm kind of answering this in like this slide. Let's go over it. So what happens here is that with this example I was giving previously, this is the search result. So I was showing the pages here. Let's remember them. Where are they? Oh my God, so many pages. Okay, this is the original page, and then WebMD is reposting the original content. And the search result is, but you will see what kind of search result is this. So that's my search term. I'm searching for video taste in mouth COVID. And when you put that, you can see WebMD is ranking like in the first position. And Health Day is ranking position number 6, I guess, yeah? So the main difference and why this is happening is because they are saying they are syndicating the content, so they are not trying to hide it. They're not playing a game. That's very important. I'm going to talk about them in a more methodical way, in a more structured way in a second, but I would like to answer this question. And as you probably recognize, WebMD is a very well-known, very old, and very like with old, it's age, so it's there for a long time. It has solid processes. It has a group of MDs that is reading these articles and checking them and then giving their thumbs up. So there is a ton of credibility behind it. And with this credibility, this is one of the signals. Google thinks that, this is syndicated content, which is fine, because it's not duplicated content. We talked about this difference. And because of other signals, because I know that WebMD is quite credible when it comes to COVID-19, and it is a topic that Google cares so much about it because it's about basically your life, and Google doesn't want to show any factually super incorrect. I mean, factually incorrect and like so superstitious pages more prominently. That's why they prefer this one. So that's the basic answer. It's like it is because there are so many signals, and if the signals are strong enough with syndication, you can overrank the original content. Another question is coming from Elizabeth. So question says, right, if that original article is syndicated to 10 sites, which one gets served by Google and gets the traffic credit? Wow, perfect question. So that depends on how they are syndicating the content. In this example, WebMD is getting it. In another example is, I guess it was here, like for example, drugs page, even though they put Canonical, they were not ranking. I'm sorry. They put Canonical, they were ranking. So they messed it up here. Or if you put no index, you're not going to rank. So there are ways of controlling signals that are telling Google like, hey, my content is high quality, first off. And secondly, I'm doing the syndication the right way. And third, I'm not playing a game about syndication. I'm basically saying that's syndicators, but I have organized my content very well. So check out my breadcrumb. Check out my overall site experience. My page opens up in milliseconds. My site is mobile friendly. My site is serving the content HTTPS. So the more checks you get, the more signals for ranking are providing positive results, you're increasing your chances for ranking. But then there are also ways that you can catastrophically basically say, like, I'm not going to rank by putting a no index or something, or by not linking out from your page because you're trying to hide it. So the more you try to rank, you're probably not going to rank. But you need to know how to rank. Instead of trying, you should create processes behind them and be consistent on them. Oh my, there are so many questions. I'll take one more and then continue with the rest of my slide deck, because I believe it's going to provide a bit more insight. Do we need to keep the permissible limit between duplicate content and original content in the website? Oh, amazing question. So there is no limit between duplicate content and original content. And with duplicate, we mean the definition is, so it could be, for example, you have one page X, and then you have page X1 to page X3000, and everything stays the same, but only the titles change. That's duplicate content. But syndicating it Like if you are asking, for example, how much content I should syndicate while I create my own sources, then I think the answer there is you got to try to see whether you are syndicating the content that makes sense for your users and users like it. So you start with, I would say, like, let's try to give a number. Let's say every day you are creating 10 articles, 10 original articles, unique with your own editors. Let's start with one syndication a day, which is 10% of your content becomes actually like, it's not 10, it's 11 out of 1. It's like 9%. Let's say 2. That's totally fine. You see the math. So it's basically a reasonable number. Let's say 10 to 20% of your content becomes syndicated, and see how your users react. Check the analytics. Check between the average page view, the average page time on page, and the bounce rate of your original content, compare it with the syndicated content, and see if they are bringing similar search traffic. So in this way, you will ensure your readers' experience along with your organic traffic building skills, or like not skills, but how to say, I don't know the right, it didn't come to my mind, sorry. It's like how your organic traffic builds up with this new initiative, with incorporating syndicated content. So you can keep the balance that way. And perhaps at some point, you're syndicating 80%, and you become the source that people are interested to read about this content because it's so relevant to your users, your audience, or you unlocked a new audience that is that loves the content they get, and at the same time you can feed your original content to them. So I was asked to give some examples. I'll try to give some examples. Let me know if you think there's a lack of example. Okay, I'm trying to remember. Okay, so I'm going back to the presentation. Yeah, I got it. Cool. I'm happy to have a good answer that I hope. It wasn't about duplicates, but syndication. So we were talking about the signals. What Google does is, as a machine, it crawls your pages, discovers them, and then tries to understand what the page is about. With using so many different algorithms, and then ranks your page based on the search terms. So when they are doing that, they check certain signals, go through them, and process these signals. And when it comes to syndication, in order to rank with a syndicated content, I'm gonna talk about what kind of signals you can provide to Google and which signals align the best with Google's guidelines. Above all, I went through more than 100 of syndicated media outlets, and majority of them were healthcare related. And I checked out how their syndicated content helped them. So how they use syndicated content on their own site, and how it helped them or not. So based on that, I have identified so many different ways they are doing it, but I categorize them in 4. So you can drop out the combination of these 4. So mainly there are 4 ways how you are telling Google that you are syndicating a content and how you like to be treated. You are giving hints to Google, not directives. So there is no chance that you tell Google what exactly you want Google to do. But you can tell Google what exactly you are trying to do with your content and how you like to be treated. And then Google takes real clues like out of these signals, out of these hints, use them as signals, and then decide on the ranking of these pages. So the first thing that I have seen the way how the pages are syndicating the content and then being bold about it, whilst indicating the original content creator in the article. So it's basically, apart from reposting the article, they are putting a claimer, what is it called? A short byline, like a quick line saying the content has been first created here. And then the second way is they are setting canonicals to the original content. Then the third way I have seen is they were using no index tags. So they're basically saying, telling Google, don't index my content because it's syndicated. And then the fourth way I was seeing is they are sending links back to the original article. I have seen so many other ways, but they are a combination of these four. So that's why I'm going to talk about these four and which one is, I believe, the best way to follow for your own syndicated content. Let's see. The first one, sorry, I was reading the questions. Sorry for my awkward pauses. The first one is indicating the original content. We were looking at this page as an example how a syndicator can overrank the original source. And what happens here is, this time I'm going to use this slide for another story. And this story is one way to tell Google that you are syndicating content, and in a evaluating way is being open about it. So putting a phrase out there on top of your content, preferably in a bolded fold, saying first appeared on, or originally published in, or republished with the permission of this content publisher X. These kind of phrases is identified as a must for a high quality syndication. But I have seen it's not enough. So it is like, you really have to do that if you like to ensure the quality of your page. You can syndicate without doing this as well, but then you are having a risk, and you are risking, the better word saying that, you're creating a doubt for Google's algorithms when they are seeing, like, when they are trying to differentiate between whether you are syndicating or duplicating. You know what I mean? Because if you are not using these kind of indications, then you are automatically scraping and publishing, and that there is no added value behind this, mostly. So that's why that's a must, but that's not enough. What's not enough means, if you are not webmd.com, so if your website is not like basically known by everyone that speaks English language and ever searched any symptoms for a disease came through, if your site is not one of them, you probably will have issues getting your content ranked or get more prominent in the search engine result pages for relevant search terms. So let's keep that in mind. It's a must, but I'm not going to be enough. So this is very interesting. What I have seen that many sites out of this 100 were doing is they were canonicalizing their content. They were setting canonicals of their syndicated content to the original article. So canonical, by definition, means my article is the equivalent version of that article. And it also says that disallow, like skip my article, kind of. That's the, like, in human language, it means then that's just skip my article. It's the exact copy of this one. So when you think of that, canonical is a very, very strong hint that tells Google, hey, like, this article is a canonicalized version of that another article. But what I have seen is, and many users were, many players in the industry were adapting into that. And what I have seen is that, first off, either there are two possibilities here. Either Google is going to say like, oh yeah, that's Canonical is a super strong hint. Thanks, I'm going to drop you out of index, because that's basically why Canonical has been invented for. So for parametered URLs, so parametered URL means, let's say you are an e-commerce site and you have 5 goods you are selling, and then with a parameter, when you are sorting them, you add this parameter, sort, I don't know, ascendingly based on the price. It's the same content, it's just sorted. So you create another URL, that's a different URL, that's a different page, but it's the same page in terms of content, it's basically the same. So what happens is you're telling Google it's the same page, it's equivalent. You are canonicalizing it. And then Google says, oh, thanks, okay, I'm going to drop one of them out of index. Yeah. That's why it has been invented. But I don't understand, I really don't know. I've seen that also happening when I was inside Google. There's this adaptation in the industry for, I don't know what reason, that Canonical is being used in this case. So, and let's assume you are using the Canonical in this way, like drugs.com has used it because they really didn't want traffic from Google. They are maybe aiming other traffic sources, and they want to play it so super safe. So they are saying it's canonicalized. But then it didn't even get canonicalized. This is what's wrong with Google, because it's a hint, it's not a directive. And as you can see, in this case, it's not a strong hint. You know what the reason is? Because again, it's drugs.com, super credible, has a huge authority in this industry, so on and so on. So there are so many signals. And then Google says, oh, Canonical, all right, yeah, thanks. So, and in order to do that in an editorial way, you also need this implemented in the CMS. So it is also an expensive solution at the same time. Let's have a look at another one. I've seen many players putting no index. Again, I believe this is like being very super careful. So they don't want to be penalized for syndication, which literally doesn't exist. And I'm like, it's public domain. It's not my own finding or something. This information is in the public domain. You will see references at the end of the slide deck. You click on them and you'll see these claims there by Google officially. So again, probably because of overprotective approach to one's content, you can also no index the page where you syndicate the content, and you can say, hey, Googlebot, I don't want you to use this content in your indexes, either in Google News or Google Search. And oh yeah, Elizabeth, one more second. So I'm going to finalize the sentence, and then I would like to hear your question or your comment. So with no index, what happens is you literally drop your chances to be getting more traffic or any traffic at all from Google and either Google News or Search. So yeah. So Elizabeth, please go on.
Thanks. I just thought it would be easier than putting this in the chat. So how does this apply? So we have clients where we're trying to build a enterprise level content strategy, right? And we want to build, authority at the enterprise level, but then they have these individual like lines of business or business units that might have their own blogs or content sites. So if you were going to do internal syndication, so the enterprise site is producing all of this content that anybody within the company could pick up and republish on their individual sites and use in social or in emails, how would that and you want the main .com to get the credit, the search credit, is it still not a good practice to no index and use the syndicated versions of the articles? Does that make sense?
Well, that's a super good question. Of course, it makes sense. So
Okay.
I think in this case, it's really about like making sure with your stakeholders, with the enterprise product people, or they are head of content, making sure what they want to achieve with that. So are they happy to just have this content for their users' reading experience, so to enhance the reading experience, or do they want to also build audience, especially by using Google's search as a channel? So if it's the second one, if the later one is one of the aims why they would like to have this is syndicate, they would like to use a syndicated content strategy. In this case, no index is going to be not helping them at all. So they're actually going to be like jeopardizing the entire project. In this case, they should be using the fourth option that I haven't talked about, which is linking back to the .com version, like the original site, and saying this article is originally published here, but I'm also having it published again. So there is absolute no issue having an approach like this, even though we are talking about thousands of pages. Because Google is not going to say that, oh, this website is basically duplicating content, because it's not. It's the syndicated content. Thanks for the question. So, well, this takes us to the fourth option, which I have seen happening by few sites, and I've realized it's the best. It's the best signal because the sites that were using it were ranking better. But that's more of a that's more of a finding that I had, because it is correlated, and I have a confidence about it. But I didn't run it like for hundreds of thousands of pages, so I don't have something that I can publish with a statistical significant confidence. So it's rather also like my understanding, like intrinsic, the understanding that I have after going through these examples. So what I see is, because setting canonicals do not really 100% canonicalize your content. It works and not works. So it's the Schrodinger's cat approach. So feel free to use it, but definitely not helpful. Setting no index is just basically saying, I don't want any organic traffic at all. Super overprotective. You might want to do that, but not in the case if you would like to also get traffic, build audience with syndicated content, which is like the main subject for today's chat we have. And then lastly, I have seen that Google is originally suggesting linking for syndication. So there's also this article that I've linked. You can find at the end of the presentation. So linking back to the original article is what I've seen is like showing the most consistent ranking performance. Oh, by the way, I've seen a few more questions. Let me jump on them before I go to the what is the best practice. So one question is saying, do we need to keep the, oh, sorry, we read this. The second one is, so WebMD is not canonicalizing Help Day. How does Help Day find WebMD's syndication? WebMD, oh yeah.
So I think the question, how does Health Day find WebMD's syndication? So actually WebMD is a very large client of ours. So they actually syndicate our content. So they buy our content and put it on their site.
Thanks. Another question. Samar is asking, I have a blog devoted to hairstyles only. Can it be syndicated to hair-related topics through Help Day?
Yeah,
Um,
so we if by hairstyles you mean like actual hairstyles, like and that's it, then we don't do that. If you're talking about specific like hair loss or things like that, that's something we can definitely look into. You're welcome to message me on LinkedIn, Samar.
Thanks, Mary. I really appreciate it.
Mhm.
All right, so here what I would like to show is what I believe the best practice is when it comes to syndicating, content syndication, and being open about this to Google and making sure that you are going to rank with this and don't get kicked out of index, and also increase your chances to rank higher so you're building an audience. Well, the short answer, link back to the original article. Be open about it. Outlinking, especially linking out to sources that are credible, is not a bad thing. It is a must. You need to do that. Again, there's one more, I would call it like boldly, misconception of how Google works in the publishing industry. Many people think that linking out to other resources is going to be penalized or something. Well, of course, if you link with every sentence, literally every word is a link out, yeah, that's a terrible reading experience probably, because you won't be able even like swipe, yeah, or like go somewhere. You will be clicking somewhere accidentally. But you can even link to 15 different pages, and there is no magical number like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That depends on your editorial choice. You should get together with your editors. They are the one that creates the content, or you should get together with your SEO manager or content acquisition manager or head of content, and decide like what should be like relatively the limit for outlinking in order to avoid confusing users, and how you can do that in the best possible way. So linking out, totally you have to do, because that's how you provide signals about how transparent you are, how credible you are. So you increase your credibility by linking out. Think about a scientific article. So I know it's a boring topic probably. It's been years since I've read one, but in scientific articles, I don't think there is any super credible scientific article that is not referencing to someone else. And if you keep referencing to yourself, that is also scientifically seen as super narcissistic and not so credible too. Yeah, I'm a PhD dropout, so that came to my mind at first, but perhaps there are even better examples. So linking up, you have to do it, because this is how you are telling Google you are trustworthy. You're not hiding something. And in this case, if you are syndicating, you also, the best way to go out there is linking back to the original article. This is the first example. It's the leanest possible way that I have came up with. Of course, I use example from Health Day because I've used that as my base when I was doing this research. And then another example is maybe you can get the H1 of the article that you are syndicating, and then the this line saying article is original produced. So as you can see, what I'm doing here is like creating a placeholder strategy so that your editors do not really need to reinvent how they have to do this all the time, but you can get it semi-automated. So you have some placeholders, you have some templates, they copy paste from there. Or you can even get this maybe somehow automated by the help of a CMS adjustment. And the last one was H1 article placeholder and maybe even another branded anchor. So literally any of these options will work the best. And as you can see, this is not a no-follow link. It should not be no-follow, because this is not, there's not an attempt to build links. This is an attempt to tell what's happening on the site. And this is how you got to do this. No-follow is for for stopping the artificial link building. There is nothing artificial going on here. You are syndicating an original content and you are being open about this. It's the most natural thing you can do, and I really suggest you should do. That's basically what I wanted to talk about today. And we don't have too much time left. I can get a few more questions, or I can go through what I talked about this today. So do you have any other questions? Or also feel free to, by the way, reach out to Mary or myself, or if you have any other links in the event, with more questions after this webinar as well. So feel free. Sometimes questions they come later.
Right. And if anyone's interested in talking further about our content, booking a meeting with me, feel free to let me know that you want me to reach out to you. Perhaps provide your email in the chat or find me on LinkedIn, and I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you for your comment, Elizabeth. Very kind. So as I was pointing out earlier, here are a few resources that I have used to build these slides. And when I was referring to the points like this is public information and this is official guidance from Google, that's what I meant. So these are some different guidelines of Google about duplicate content and auto-generated content, and then the overall webmaster guideline. Especially these last two ones are directly talking about what syndication is. So the most obvious thing that Google says about syndication is be careful about it. And that's what I try to cover in today's discussion. So how you can be careful about it and how you can benefit with syndicated content. So if you don't want to invest too much for content, but you would like to build audience, syndication is the answer, and it's not duplicated. It is legitimate. It is not being perceived as spam by Google if you follow the right way